not like I usually am. Uh, I wasn't prepared to hear that read, when you said send a bio, I'm figuring, put it in some kind of post it somewhere. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna talk loud because I'm good at that. And I never have permission to talk this way. So please know I'm very, very grateful, very, very grateful to put it like 1/4 volume and just belt it out. So I'm just hearing this whole thing being kind. I said, where do I, it's all spinning right now. I'm grateful to be here, first time speaking here. I've always wanted to be a part of this community and just feel the energy here. I'm delighted at what is happening here. I've known Maryland for, I don't know, we don't need to tell, you know what I'm saying? It goes back a while. And for some reason, she looks really familiar to me too. And I don't know why, but it's probably because in consciousness, we're all one. But what I know is everything you're talking about, being that light, being that point of awareness, that's really what it's all about. The title that I received was like building unity within the spiritual community. And I had a little difficulty with that because community has the word unity right there in it. And so I'm like, well, how do you build it if it's already there? They say if you build it, they will come. Well, it's already built, so it must be happening. And so, I wrestle with, I know just belonging to a particular group, and I realized that, this thing, let me take this out here just in case I decide to look at these. The community of the home of truth is not confined to these walls. It's clearly bigger than the building because we have online, and when it's online, it's around the world, but it's even bigger than that. Because consciousness is cause. Consciousness is another word for the divine, another word for God, and God manifests the entire universe. So we have a community of universality. We are one with all beings everywhere. So our community cannot be confined to any one particular thing. We ourselves, if we know who we truly are a walking, talking, living, breathing community of our own being. It takes enough beings to make a human being a being that we can call ourselves a community. I mean, when you talk about what's that, the biome and the gut health and all the bacteria on your skin, all the stuff that makes a human being, we're like, what, 40% human or something like that. I'm not making this up. I might have my numbers wrong, but we're not just like, well, I'm a human being. God shaped me out of the clay. Really? Where'd the clay come from? What was in that clay? How do I define myself? If I'm going to talk about my community, I have an idea of what community is, but I need to have an idea of who I am because how I fit into the community is going to make all the difference about what that community is, regardless of what it was designed for. I bring my own stuff. Is this the right room? Did I come in the right place? Okay, I just, sometimes, I go in the, Joe Dispenza's got this beautiful book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. If you haven't read this book, you're doing yourself a disservice. The brother is slamming. And I paraphrased some things. I realized I thought I made some of my own stuff up, but I was looking over his quotes this morning. I said, oh, you stole that. But Dr. Holmes says we use the truth wherever we find it. So I'm going to identify that I heard him say something similar to this. And what I'm saying is you have to stop being who you was in order to be who you are. We're coming into an awareness where we recognize that right where we are and just as we are, God simply is. There's no separation, there's no delay, there's no hesitation, there's no blockage. Right where we are and just as we are literally walking, talking, living, breathing expressions of the divine, which means that as I'm walking, what's happening? God is walking. Yes? Is this the right room? Is this how we're walking around? Are we driving rush hour traffic? Who's driving? Who's the traffic? Who's the what do you call those drivers? Oh, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. You see, it's easy to talk about when we're in places like this. And I'll tell you, this philosophy saved my life. Consciousness, this idea of oneness, wholeness, it saved my life. So I'm devoted to it because I know I would be not here without it. So I'm bringing this idea that nothing else matters. Nothing else matters because there is nothing else. You are the kingdom of God. You are the kingdom of God. In my community, we have something that says, I am the answer to my ancestors' prayer. Somebody a long time ago was praying that some of their offspring would be doing as well as you're doing in your life right now. Right now, you are living the dream because you know what? And no matter what it looks like, God still is. The beautiful thing is we are required, and I heard somebody talk about choice. See, I get to choose to know this, and there's one of those things where choice can be capricious. I constantly tell myself, as I begin, and we're talking, okay, here it comes. Let me just get right to one of you as the Christ. I'm talking about all of us as the Christ. Each of us is the Christ. And it's a story about a monastery that wasn't doing very well, according to them. They were losing members and no young men were joining. Every time you look around at the dinner table, there's fewer and fewer of us. And those of us who are getting up there, and a lot of us are, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And they think, you know, we might die out. There might not be any more of us. Believing that who I am is simply this body right here. And my community is the people I'm looking at right now. And I see some of us missing. I'm wondering whatever is going to happen to me, to mine, to my community. Everybody was afraid. Everybody was worried. But they heard about this holy man who was traveling nearby. So they sent one of their own to go talk to this holy man. He's away for a while and he finally comes back and they said, did you get there? Yeah, got there. Okay, everything was great. Did you get to see him? Yeah, I got to see him. Did you get to talk to him? Yeah, I got to talk to him. But did you tell him what our problem was? Yeah, I told him what the problem was. Well, what did he say? Well, sadly, he said he couldn't help us. He said he couldn't help us. He was sorry I traveled all that way, but he couldn't help us. But a curious thing happened as I began to leave. He did say, but I do know one thing. And I turned, he said, one of you is the Christ. And he said, what did he say? He said that one of us is the Christ. Dude, I'm telling you, that's what he said. Like, that can't be. That just can't be. He said, but you know, oh, George over there, he's been really doing his chores with devotion. He's always got a kind word. If one of us is the Christ, I'll bet it's George. So they all started being nice to George, you know. They started treating George extra kind because George might be the Christ. You know, he comes through the line, they give him a little bit more mashed potatoes on his bowl. You know, you get a little bit more juice, you know. But time goes on, things didn't get any better, so they figured, no, it can't be George. Things would have gotten better by now if it was George. Maybe it's Peter over here. They started treating Peter a little better. And one by one, they went down the line, trying to ascertain which one of them was the Christ. And they began to be kinder to one another, more respectful to one another, more acknowledging of one another, more helpful to one another. They began to stand in their own authority more, take responsibility more, have more self-reflection, doing their own shadow work so as not to offend the Christ which walked among them. And there was a change in that monastery. The light was brighter. The air was fresher. One day, a family was picnicking on the grounds, and a young man was with his family there, and he was so impressed by the idyllic setting that he realized, I want to spend the rest of my life in this place. And the community began to grow. The story is one of you is the Christ, but the truth is each of us is the Christ. That consciousness is each of us expressing. And it's a beautiful thing I'm dealing with. This is what got me confused because I was afraid to say this. This is what I'm afraid to say. I'm just going to say it. Sin. Dun, 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 dun. I had to get it out. You don't get to say that much in places like this. But as I contemplated the message that came to me, there was asked this. Christ, the Anointed One, it's a title, but there's a man called Jesus, the Christ, that most people think of. It was also the name Messiah. My grandson has that name. Christ and Messiah are synonymous. Jesus the Christ, a visionary, a teacher. Some people say their personal Lord and Savior. Everybody has all these different relationships. But of all the avatars, of all the wise beings that have come through, that continue to come through, his message was the forgiveness of sin. This is powerful. Now, I'm not going to get into what sin is. I understand that originally it was an archery term that meant missing the mark. I was listening to Meredith sing, and I love to hear her sing this song. Thank you for, I started, what, they're not going to sing it first? Oh, God, no. The person who we have to forgive, the sins that we need to forgive are our own. We have to give ourselves a break. See, as they begin to treat each other better, they begin to recognize the God in one another. Well, that God is reflecting back on them. It's reflecting back into them. And they began to feel a sense of wholeness that wasn't there before. Because as long as we're talking about what ails us, what's wrong with the world, we have to get to a place where there's nothing wrong. There's never been anything wrong. Kindness is pervasive throughout humanity. It's natural. It doesn't get talked about a lot. It doesn't get reported a lot. And I don't know exactly why that is, but I know that there's no kindness news channel. When I look at politics, I don't see the kindness party. I've seen the days you catch me wrong and you would know no kindness because I'm identifying with my pain. Who is that? Eckhart Tolle talked about the pain body. We've begun to identify with that part of ourselves, that shadow self that we don't want to look at, that we don't want to see. So we cast those ideas about ourselves that we are ashamed of and we don't like on other people, and we judge them and we make them wrong. But people in consciousness, there is no they. I wish there was a they sometimes, like I tell you, because this is the one I can't hide from. There's some days I just wish there was somebody I could blame for what is going on right now, because I don't feel like it. But you see, there's a commitment to this thing right here when we talk about we're one with the divine. You see, we don't get to cherry pick when we're one. We're always one, which means we're always speaking with. We're always speaking with the divine authority. We're always standing in the divine authority as the divine authority. And if we think there's something wrong, it is. It's our thinking. We are projecting wrong. The problem is we have this idea about the way things are supposed to look. We think things are supposed to look a certain way. We don't know how it's supposed to look. We have a perspective based on what our parents taught us, whose parents taught them, and broken people can't raise whole people. We have to emerge like the caterpillar. You know, we're just consuming everything around us. The parents said, eat that, do this, be that, do this, be that. And we consumed all that stuff until we couldn't take it anymore. And we've spun a cocoon of wholeness. But the cocoon that houses the caterpillar doesn't just open up and let the caterpillar out. The caterpillar has to fight his way out of there, or her way. Thank you very much. Am I in the right room? Okay, caterpillar, ball. What did I say? Okay, you're right. You're right. And that's why I keep my lovely wife around. She continuously reminds me, no, that's true. And it's funny because I say that a lot. I'm stuck on the idea that the caterpillar fights his way out. You know what the crazy part about it is? And this is about consciousness. I love this. The butterfly is not a mature caterpillar. It's a completely different species. They don't understand it. The caterpillar dissolves into a goo, not a glue, a goo, in the chrysalis, in the cocoon. It completely dissolves. It's not there anymore. And what is formed is an entirely different being. This is what happens in consciousness, you see. We have to stop being who we was in order to be who we are. And those sacred cows of consciousness, those things we don't want to let go of. And we know how the things we don't want to, you know how we identify the things we don't want to let go of? It still hurts us. It still hurts because we're still holding on. Consciousness, and you got to let that go. No. I'm not going to let it go. You're going to let it go. The question is, how much pain are you willing to take before you do? When I say you, I know there's no you. I'm talking about me. So please do the interpretation there, because there's only one of us here. This is a horrible idea. There's only one of us here. It is, because it means I don't exist. My ego doesn't like it. But I've learned not to listen to him anymore. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Does anybody's ego, let me check in the right room. Does anybody have an ego that actually knows what he's talking about? Sometimes. So, you know, guess what? I already know about mine. He's showing up for one reason, for me to win. And in order for me to win, I have to not care about other people, because I want to make sure I'm better than them. That's what winning looks like. I get more than them. That's what winning looks like. That's his job, to take care of me and make sure I get mine. How do we build a community, a unity in the community? We begin to stop being ourselves and be the divinity. Become the divinity. Well, you know, Reverend Watt, you can't live from the macro. You have to live from the micro. You can't live from the absolute. You have to live from the... That's not true. Principle is principle. Reciprocity always wins. And when we recognize that reciprocity always wins, then we know what we send out. We like to say it's coming back. It's not really coming back. The residue of what we sent out is still inside of us. But we sent it out there so we can see what it looks like. And now when we feel it, we think somebody's doing something to us. Is this the right room? I love the idea. I heard somebody talking about being that light, being that presence. That's what it's all about. My brother Ishmael, my mentor, brother Ishmael, he says, I am not here. I am not here. Just as the wave exists by the collective power of the entire ocean, I exist by the collective power of the entire universe. I am not here. Not the guy who calls himself Muata, who used to be William Oliver, who used to be Billy. Let me be one with the infinite. Let me walk and talk and live and breathe and have my being as one who knows and knows that they know that everything I say is flowing from a consciousness of wholeness, and I have to watch my mouth. I don't get to say everything that comes to my mind. I don't get to be mad at people anymore. As a matter of fact, if I'm upset about something, it's tell me, you know, my rage and my anger and my pain and my fear are like X's on a treasure map. Dig here, excavate this place. There's a pain here, there's a hurt here, there's a harm here, and it's keeping me from manifesting my bliss. It's keeping me from enjoying the fullness of my life. And I'm not playing the game anymore. see him anymore. And so I seek God everywhere. If I don't, I look longer. The problem is sometimes God shows up as ugly. Sometimes God looks mean. I heard a story the other day. God pulled a gun on a brother. He had got into it with some people on the street. Somebody was messing with somebody, taking advantage of somebody. And he's the kind of a guy who defends the weak, defends the powerless. And so he stepped to this guy who was messing with this other guy, and the fight broke out. And he started hitting this guy and beating him, and he's beating him down, and he's really giving it to him. And finally, he hears click, click, back up, man, stop right now. He said, somebody pulled a gun on me. This was a friend of mine. My friend pulled a gun on me. He said, man, I'm afraid you're going to kill that man. I said, God pulled the gun on you, bro. If God is all there is, who pulled the gun? Who was the perpetrator? Who was the victim? See, here's the thing. Here's a startling piece of information. You realize that the dope dealer and the dope user are both hooked on drugs? Both of them feel like they can't live without it. Victims need a victimizer. Now, I'm not saying bad stuff don't happen. I'm not saying hurt and harm doesn't happen. I know it does. It's happened to me. But it happened to a person who didn't know who he was. I know who I am now, and I am willing to stand in the fire like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. I'm willing to stand in the fire and let everything that's not wholeness be consumed. I'm the David in the stone. And God is continually chipping away that parts of my life that does not perfect me. And it hurts sometimes. It's painful sometimes. It's wrong sometimes. It's low down and dirty sometimes. But that's me holding on to the form that doesn't suit me. So if we're going to build unity in the community, we have to accept who the heck we are. Because we ain't who we think we are. We're way bigger than that. There's so much more than that. I was having this psychic battle once with some different energy that I consider to be evil. I know not everybody's into that kind of thing, but I like to fancy myself a bit of a, I'm not scared. I think I'm doing pretty good, And this energy decided, well, I'm just going to hang out here with you. If I can't defeat you, I will just hang out here with you and see what you're up to. And I heard an automatic response. This is what happens when you have a consistent discipline practice. And I don't meditate. I'm not the greatest meditator. But one thing I know how to do, people, one thing I know how to do, I know how to surrender in the moment. When I realize I'm in error, when I realize I'm not speaking from conscious, acting from conscious, I just, excuse me, let me just go back. This energy says, well, I'll hang out here with you. And I heard myself automatically respond, oh, no, you won't, because there's only one of us here. I'm thinking, that'll get you straight. But when I said there's only one of us here, the spell was broken. Okay, that conversation was done. It's like I'm back in my body. And I looked around, and I don't know which one of us is left. I said there's only one of us here, but which one am I now? Am I him? Am I me? And as I'm trying to figure it out, I felt myself laughing and just hysterically, no, you said there's only one. Neither one of you is here right now. You surrendered into the oneness, Muata. You surrendered into the wholeness. Your antagonizer and you were a construct. So this energy here, this light we're talking, this community that we're building, is already built. What we're doing now is being the divine community, being the sacred community. So every place we go, the scripture says, let your light shine so before men that all who see you can bear witness to the glory of God and manifest in you, through you, and as you. Paraphrasing there just a little bit. There's a beautiful place in a beautiful place with beautiful people. And regardless how many people show up, never doubt that you are making a difference on this planet with that consciousness. Never doubt. as Margaret Mead said, that a small group of thoughtful and committed citizens can make a difference in the world. Indeed, that's all that ever has. It's happening now, right here. In each and every one of us, we're making a difference, people. We're doing good because we're letting go and we're letting God be God. God bless us, everyone.